Hey, this is Mark Williams of Swine Life Barbecue. Today I'm doing competition style loin back ribs. I got 3 slabs of ribs here. We're gonna get them trimmed down, get a good coat of rub on them, and then we're gonna get them out there on the Outlaw Patio smoker to get a great smoke flavor. At about that 2-hour mark, we'll get them wrapped, render them, get them good and tender, and then we're gonna finish with killer hog sauce. You know it's gonna be good. Let's get started. So the first thing we gotta do is get these ribs trimmed down. Now on a competition style rib, we don't use the end cuts. We want the perfect portions going to the judge. And as you can tell, some of these end cuts get really small on these loin back ribs. And then once you get to this end, they start to veer off and get a little bit of crooked. So what we're gonna do is usually I knock off 1 to 2 bones off each end. I know for a fact this right here is not gonna produce a good rib. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it off right there. So this rib's gonna be a little bit short, but all I'm gonna do is kind of straighten it up. I see where the bone's in. And we'll do the same to the rest of them. Now this slab here has a lot better end cut on it, so I'm not gonna have to take off as much. What I'm gonna do is just take 1 off this end and come down probably about the same length. It may be 10 bones, it may be a little more, a little less. You wanna kinda keep them all the same length. That way they lay in the smoker well, they're gonna cook more even, and you know exactly how many bones you got to pull from on each one. Same thing with this one. Now if we were doing full-blown competition ribs, I would have the butcher come in and straighten these cuts up. That way each bone will be cut good and straight and they present really well in the box. So while we got them flipped over, we're gonna go ahead and get the membranes pulled. Now this one here, it's already been pulled. What I do is I take a paper towel, go dead center between the bones, and just pinch up that membrane just like that. You walk your finger underneath it, go all the way across, hold the ribs down, and in one pull, you get that whole membrane off. It's super easy. So we're gonna do the same to this. Go right there between the bones in the center, walk your fingers all the way underneath that membrane until you get it just like that. Hold the ribs down, and it's simple as that. So we'll flip them over, kind of see what we're working with. Now if you have a lot of heavy fat right here, at home, that's a great eating rib, but for contests, you want good even color. So I'm just gonna kind of shave some of this off. I'm not gonna shave it all off, but I just wanna expose a little bit more of that meat. And you can tell this end gets a good bit thicker, so that's gonna cause it not to cook as even. Same thing with this, that's not gonna stay on there. Once that fat renders, this piece here is gonna wanna fall off when you're trying to slice your ribs. So we're gonna go ahead and get it out of the way. I know I'm gonna get preached to, I'm taking fat off of pork, but hey, some days you gotta do this in a contest. The biggest thing with a competition style rib is you want it to present well. You can look at this one and tell it's got uniform meat all the way at the end. That rib there is gonna present really well in the box. This one may not, so what you would do is if you had these ribs to choose from, I would put this one in the back of the box. They would only see the top half. It would look just as good as this one. I'd have that one front and center. You know it'd get that judge's attention. So that one don't need anything, and this one here looks pretty well. I may take off this little bit of hanger right here. The next thing we gotta do is get some good seasoning on them. I'm gonna start with our Mississippi Grape. You can use any salt, pepper, garlic based rub. You just want a good savory note up front. I always start with the backside. We're not gonna use a binder. If you're using a good quality rub, it's gonna pull enough moisture out, this rub will stick. Now, if you wanna use mustard, go for it. I used to use it plenty of times. I like it either way. These ribs are already a little bit damp, and I know this rub's gonna start working on them immediately. As soon as it gets on there, it's gonna start pulling that moisture out. It'll be tacking up. Once we get a little coat of that on there, I'll flip it over. That way it'll give it time to work a little bit. And we're gonna do the same thing to the top side. And I'd say we're going to, medium to light coat. We're not going super heavy with it. This is just a good base layer. It's gonna wake up all them savory notes. You can tell right there, that moisture's already coming out. That rub's already adhering to that meat really well. And now you wanna come back with a sweeter, a little bit more standard barbecue rub. We're gonna use the Mississippi grind. And again, we're still going about the same amount of rub. You can go a little bit heavier with the barbecue rub, add a little bit more color. And we may have to touch them up throughout the cook process and get it patted in, get it flipped over, get some put on the top side. So now that we got them seasoned, I'm gonna get out here and get this pit fired up. I'm gonna let these sit out for probably about 20 or 30 minutes. Right before they go in the pit, I'll look and see if there's any light spots after this rub sets in. We'll touch them up and they'll be ready to get in the smoke. So to get this Outlaw Patio smoker fired up today, we're gonna fill this basket up with a little bit of Royal Oak lump charcoal. We'll get a starter cube under it, get it fired up, and then once we get a good bed of coals, we'll start feeding it these splits. So we're out here at the Outlaw Patio smoker. She's running about 275. Let's get these ribs on. So what I'm gonna do, I know this one here is a little bit thicker, so I'm gonna put it kind of closer to the fire. Another one put over here. We'll get the lid closed. So we got the ribs on. Let's add a little bit of wood to this fire. I got a couple of pecan and cherry splits from smokerwood.com. If you're looking for a great high quality piece of wood to run in your smoker, make sure to check them out. They got tons of flavors. You won't be disappointed. So we'll keep an eye on the temp. We'll run about 275 to 300. At that 1 hour mark, we'll come out here and get them spritzed, make sure the color is looking good, and we'll keep on cooking. While we got the ribs on the smoker, we're gonna go ahead and get this sauce made. I'm gonna start off with 1 bottle of Killer Hogs The Barbecue Sauce. We'll get that into a good mixing bowl. And then I'm gonna add about 1 cup of the vinegar sauce. It's should be about a half a bottle. We'll kind of get this incorporated a little bit before we add the rest. And then what I have here is about 3/4 cup of a orange marmalade. What I did is I heated it up in the microwave, got it thin, and I run it through a small strainer just to get any pulp or any zest that may be in there. We'll get that added. What that's gonna do is add a good sheen to this sauce, make it shine, and that orange really complements this sauce really well. And then I got a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Wake them judges' taste buds up, and we'll get that all mixed up. Now I would say once we get ready to glaze these ribs, you kind of want this a little bit warmer than room temp. So we may pop it back in the microwave just for a few seconds. Now if you're doing this the day of, you can make it, let it sit out on the counter, it'll be fine. If you're doing this early, it'll hold in the refrigerator probably 2 to 3 weeks, no problem. Just get it in a container, get it sealed up good, throw it in the fridge. It gets better with time. So these ribs have been on for about an hour. Let's see what they're looking like. So you can tell we got good color. That bark's starting to sit and that rub's tacked on there good. What I have in this spritz bottle is a little bit of white grape peach juice. You can use apple juice, water, whatever you like. We'll get them spritzed down good. Man, that color looks good. And then we'll go ahead and add another little split or two. So we got a good little bed of coals. We got a little bit of this cherry in here. Throw another stick of pecan. So these ribs been on this cooker for 2 hours. They should be ready to wrap, but let's check the color and make sure. We'll get this one out here in the light so we can see it. And I'm gonna say those are ready to wrap. You can tell the rubs are here. Those look good to me. Let's get them in the house. We'll get them wrapped up with butter, brown sugar, all the great stuff's gonna make these ribs taste even better. So we brought these ribs in. Let's get them wrapped up. I'm gonna start off with parquet squeezed butter. I know there's gonna be a bunch of people complaining it ain't real butter, but it sure is good on ribs. We're gonna go ahead and get us a good line laid out. And what I've done is I laid the rib in front of it. That way you can tell about how wide you need to plow this. We're gonna come back with a little bit of Mississippi ground barbecue rub, just to carry those flavors throughout the cook. We got some brown sugar. I'd say it's about 1/3 of a cup. And then we got 1/4 cup of Killer Hogs vinegar sauce. This should bring a little bit of that tangy vinegar flavor, plus add a little bit of heat. Now we're gonna get them placed in this mixture, meat side down. Now I got 2 layers of heavy duty foil. I'm gonna go ahead and get it started just like that. Get one end crimped, folded shut. And now that you got this end open, I got 1/4 cup of the white grape peach juice. I'm gonna go ahead and pour it in. Kind of tilt it up, let it run to the other side. Get this end folded. So we got the ribs wrapped. We're gonna place them back on the pit just like they were. Get a little airspace between each one of them. While we're out here, we'll go ahead and check on our fire, see how we're doing there. We got a pretty good bed of coals. We still got some little sticks still going. I'm gonna go ahead and add one more split to the top of it. We'll let this go for about an hour. We'll come back out, we'll open the foil, we'll check, see how the doneness is looking. They may be ready to come off, but they may have to go to about that 1 hour 15 mark. We'll check on them in an hour. These ribs have been on here for about an hour. I suspect they're probably gonna take another 10 or 15 minutes to hit that perfect 205 doneness, but an hour mark's a good time to check it. If you do have some done, you can go ahead and get them off so you don't have to worry about overcooking them. So let's get on in here and see what we're working with. I'm gonna pull this one right out of the middle. And then what I try to do is not open them all the way, you just wanna take a peek. And I can tell already, I mean, we're only sitting at 185-ish. They got pretty good resistance. So we're gonna just get it closed back up and get it right back on. We'll go ahead and temp this one while we're in here. It feels a little bit softer. Same thing, we're just gonna kind of crack it open. And this one's temping about 200. Still a little bit of resistance. So we're gonna get these back in here. I'm gonna move this one here. Kind of rearrange them just in case it might be a little bit more heat here and there. We'll get the lid shut. These ribs still got a little ways to go. We'll set an alarm for 15 minutes, come back and check them then. So our 15-minute timer went off. Let's see where they're at now. So I'm gonna check this one we haven't opened yet. Be careful that steam may get you. 201. They feel soft. I'm gonna go ahead and call these good. Now our others that we put back over here, they were already 200. They just needed a little bit to go. I'm gonna say they're good. And then we're gonna go ahead and check this big one. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a little bit of behind, but we're gonna double check. Bone drawback isn't quite as much. Yeah, this one's about 195, so we'll get this one back in here. It's probably got another at least 15 minutes. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get these in here and let them start resting. On ribs, I'd like for them at least rest 30 minutes before you get them out there and start glazing them, just to try to absorb some of that butter and some of that goodness we put in that full wrap. I'll go ahead and get these up. We'll see you on the cutting board in a little bit. So now that these ribs rested, what I did is I took them out of the foil just because it could be messy with all that juice in there, and I just put them on one of these little foil pans. What I'm gonna do is touch it up with just a little bit of rub on the backside. You can tell they got good color already. And then I'm gonna go ahead and brush a little bit of sauce on the backside as well. I heated this up in the microwave for about 30 seconds just to get it a little bit warmer than room temp. It's not gonna take much on the backside. Color looks good, they smell good. Got a pretty good drawback. You can see right down here, I don't know if you can tell, you can see right here you got a little bit of disintegration on that membrane. You can see that bone exposed, so you know they're gonna be tender. You can smell the fruitiness of that sauce. We'll go ahead and get them flipped over. Now be careful doing this because they're super tender. They still got really good color even on this side. And what I'll do is I'll do a light coat of rub the whole length of the rib. And if you see any light spots where that fat's done rendered and it doesn't have quite the color you're looking for, just put a little bit heavier coat right there. Now these are ready to get back out on the pit. That pit's still running 275. This is the most critical time of your cook to make sure you're running a good clean fire. Once you get this sauce and everything on it, the least little bit of dirty smoke, you're gonna be able to tell. So we're back out of the pit. She's running 275. We're just gonna get them placed dead center and then get the lid closed. We're gonna let these go in there for about 10 minutes. Depending on how your cooker and how the airflow is rolling, you may wanna check on them about 5. You just want a good dry bark before you put that sauce on. So I brought these ribs in. They were out there for about 10 minutes. As you can see, it's dried that rub out. They got a beautiful color and a really good dry bark on them for this sauce to stick to. Now what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make them shine. So I got my sauce here. We'll get a pretty good coat on it. You just wanna make sure you get all the edges. And we'll do the same with this one. I like brushing the sauce on lengthways with the rib, that way you don't quite see the brush marks. Some silicone brushes are really bad about leaving them in there. And we're not going super heavy with this sauce. I mean, you want them to shine, but I personally like to have a little bit thinner of a sauce. And once you get it back on the pit, it's gonna tack up and thin it out just a little bit more. We'll get these back out on the pit. Again, it shouldn't take about 10 minutes. Make sure you're running a clean fire. Then we'll bring them right back in. So we got these ribs glazed up. We brought them in from the smoker and they've been sitting here on the cutting board for about 5 minutes. Just as a quick recap, we started off with 3 slabs of loin back ribs. We trimmed them up, knocked the ends off of it where they're about a 10 bone cut, trimmed any fat off the top so they present good, got them seasoned, got them out there on the Outlaw Patio smoker, really put some good pecan and cherry smoke on them. At the 2-hour mark, we wrapped them, let them go for about 1:15 to get them good and tender. Pulled them out of the wrap, got them glazed with that Killer Hog sauce, and you can tell they are flat out beautiful. They got great color, mahogany through and through. You know they're gonna be good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how I would do this for a contest, how I would cut them down to go in the box. Now I'm not gonna build a full box, but some of these little tips may help you when it comes to building that box. First thing I'm gonna do is take your sauce you glaze your ribs with and brush it on your cutting board. You just want enough on there to where when I lay these ribs face down, it's not gonna mess up that pretty appearance and they're not gonna stick, and if they slide around, it's really not gonna damage your appearance on these ribs. So I'm gonna take this one here, and again, you just lay it face down. That way you can tell your cuts, you can see your bones, you can usually get a pretty good clean cut on them. So if I was at a contest, this one here, that's my taster rib. So all I'm gonna do is come in here and start my cuts there. Now, depending on if it's a KCBS or MBN contest, you may do a single bone cut, you may do a double. But just look at that moisture. I mean, they are just packed full, tender as can be, wanting to fall off the bone, still holding intact. I said this is a taster. I'm about to see what it's all about. Perfect texture. Wow. That right there is a fine rib. The texture on it's great. So I'm gonna do this just like I would for MBM style rib. As you can tell, I split the ribs there. I'm gonna go 2 bones. Now, some people will do a full Hollywood cut and go bone to bone. I like splitting them down the middle, just like that. I'm gonna go 2 bones, split them down the middle, 2 bones, split them down the middle. And that's your knockoff. And just like that. What I would do for a box is I would come in here, glaze the cuts. That's gonna do 2 things. To me, I think it somewhat seals it up, keeps that rib from drying out a little bit as it sits here. And plus it just adds to the presentation. Adds good color to that cut portion of meat. And then I would just scoop it up just like this, place it in the box, and I would try to do 3 rows of that. The reason in a Memphis and May style or MBN style cook is that judge's gonna pick that rib up. He's gonna wanna twist it apart to see how tender it is. Perfect bite. I know I got it all over, but that's a good rib. That's a wrap for us today at Swine Life. We appreciate y'all checking this video out. I hope y'all try this recipe. If you're into competition cooking, give this a go. Tweak it, make it your own. If y'all got any questions, shoot us a message on Facebook or Instagram. And as always, like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see y'all next time.